A figure stood at the edge of camp, but only appeared in thermal vision. We didn't notice it at first. Site 17 sat in the middle of a gravel loop, one of those public campgrounds with numbered posts and a shared spigot down the lane. The forest ringed everything in a clean, deliberate boundary, like it had been trimmed back just enough to keep things safe. Or at least visible. Our fire was low, just coals breathing under a thin lattice of sticks, and the nylon walls of our tent whispered every time the breeze shifted. Somewhere across the loop, a couple laughed softly. A zipper rasped. A lantern clicked off. "Feels quieter than it should," Mina said, not looking up from the stove. She was crouched on the pad, stirring noodles with methodical patience. Steam rose in thin threads, dissolving almost immediately in the cold. "It's midnight," I said. "People sleep." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not like this." Ethan snorted from his camp chair, boots stretched toward the fire. "You say that every trip." "I don't," she replied. "Listen." We did. The crackle of the fire sounded too sharp, like each pop snapped something brittle in the air. Beyond that, nothing. No insects, no rustling leaves. Even the distant voices had thinned to a memory. Ethan leaned forward, poking the coals. "Still sounds like a forest to me." "That's the problem," Mina said quietly. I reached for my phone, mostly to break the silence. The thermal attachment clipped on with a soft click, the tiny sensor warming up with a faint vibration. I'd brought it for fun, spotting animals at night mostly. It painted the world in gradients. Cool blues, warmer greens, bright yellows and reds where heat pooled. "Let's see what's out there," I said, lifting it. First, it was nothing special. The ground held the day's warmth in faint patches. Our fire burned bright, a pulsing white core. Ethan's face glowed orange where the heat gathered under his skin. Then I swept the camera toward the tree line. "There," I said without meaning to. Mina stood, abandoning the stove. "What?" I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. At the edge of the forest, just past the boundary where gravel gave way to dirt, a figure stood, upright, human-shaped, not moving. It burned bright, brighter than our fire, almost white, but wrong somehow. The heat didn't spread naturally. It pulsed, tightening and loosening like a heartbeat that didn't match any rhythm I knew. "Is that someone?" Ethan asked, standing now, squinting into the dark. "Hey!" He waved, arm cutting through the firelight. To the naked eye, there was nothing there, just the black seam of trees. "Don't," Mina said sharply. "Don't call out. It's probably another camper," he said. "Dude's just standing there like a creep." I lowered the phone, blinking. The edge of camp looked empty, completely empty. I raised it again. The figure hadn't moved. But the heat, God, the heat was shifting, rippling inward like it was collapsing into itself. "Show me," Mina said. I handed her the phone. She flinched as soon as she saw it. "That's not a person," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, peering over her shoulder. "It's just heat. Maybe a rock or something holding warmth." "It's shaped like a man," I said. "Pareidolia," he replied automatically, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. Mina slowly panned the camera left, then right. The trees appeared as cold silhouettes, thin blue lines against darker voids. Then she sucked in a breath. "There's another one." "What?" I said, grabbing the phone back. There wasn't. Not at first. Just the original figure still pulsing. But as I held the image steady, the sensor flickered. For a fraction of a second, the screen split like a reflection misaligned. And there, a few feet closer to camp, stood the same figure. Then it snapped back. "Did you see that?" I asked. Ethan shook his head. "See what?" "It moved," Mina said. "Or duplicated." "It didn't move," Ethan insisted, louder now. "You're both freaking yourselves out." The lantern beside us flickered. Not dimming, flickering, like something passed between it and us, though nothing cast a shadow. The air shifted. A cold draft slid across the gravel, brushing my ankles through the thin fabric of my pants. It didn't feel like wind. It felt localized, like stepping into a patch of refrigerated air. Okay, Ethan said, quieter now. That's weird. I lifted the phone again. The figure was closer. Not by much, maybe a step, but it hadn't walked. It was just there now. And the pulsing had intensified, the heat blooming outward in uneven waves that distorted the image around it. Hey, Ethan called again, more tentative. If you're messing around, it's not funny. No answer. Across the loop, a tent flap rustled. A man's voice murmured something indistinct, then went silent again, like he'd thought better of speaking. Mina backed toward our tent. We should go inside. It's probably just the device glitching, Ethan said, though he didn't sound convinced. Cheap sensor, interference. The phone buzzed in my hand. The image fractured. Now there were three. One at the tree line, one halfway across the gravel, one impossibly standing just behind Ethan. I spun, heart slamming. Nothing. Just Ethan, his back to me, staring into the dark. Don't move, I said. Why? He asked. I didn't answer. I raised the phone slowly, angling it behind him. The third figure stood inches from his shoulders. Its outline wavered, edges dissolving and reforming. The heat pulsing so violently it bled into his silhouette, merging and separating in nauseating rhythm. It's right behind you, Mina said, her voice barely audible. Ethan laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. Not funny. I'm not joking, she said. The lantern flickered again, then dimmed to a dull, inconsistent glow. The fire snapped loudly, sparks spiraling up and vanishing into the dark. Okay, Ethan said. Okay, we're going in the tent. He stepped back. On the screen, the figure didn't move. It stayed where it was, and for a second, Ethan walked through it. His heat signature swallowed and distorted, stretched thin like taffy. Then the image snapped back to normal. Ethan stumbled, catching himself on the edge of the picnic table. What the hell? You felt that? I asked. He nodded slowly. Cold. Like walking through a freezer. Mina grabbed my arm. The sign. What? At the trailhead, she said. When we came in. You remember? About the thermal survey. I did. A weathered board near the ranger station, half covered in notices. One of them had stood out, bright orange, newer than the rest. Thermal monitoring in progress. For accurate readings, minimize heat signatures at night. Do not approach marked zones after dark. We hadn't seen any marked zones. Maybe this is part of that, Ethan said, seizing on it. Equipment. Sensors. Maybe we're picking up something we're not supposed to. The phone glitched again. The screen filled with figures. Dozens of them scattered across the campground loop. Between tents. Along the road. Pressed up against the thin walls of sleeping campers. All of them pulsing, flickering, their heat signatures overlapping in impossible ways. And every single one was facing our sight. The lantern went out. In the sudden dark, the forest seemed to lean closer. Inside, Mina said, already unzipping the tent. We scrambled in, the nylon walls brushing our shoulders, the fabric loud and fragile in the silence. I pulled the zipper closed, sealing us in. The air inside felt wrong, colder than it should have been, despite our body heat. I raised the phone one last time. Through the thin tent wall, the figures burned bright. So close now that their shapes blurred together, a mass of pulsing heat pressing in from all sides. Except for one. At the far edge of the screen, just beyond the others, a single figure stood apart. Still, watching. His heat didn't pulse like the rest. It was steady, and slowly, impossibly, it began to cool. Their tent was surrounded by symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. At first, I thought it was just the firelight flickering across the gravel. We were at Site 17 gravel pad, iron fire ring, warped wooden post with the number peeling off. Beyond us, the loop curved through tall pines. Other campers were faint constellations. A cough, a zipper, a laugh cut off too quickly. Normal sounds, reassuring. except for the silence in between. Ethan crouched by the cooler. "Do you see that?" "See what?" he asked without looking up. "On the ground, around the tent." Mara leaned out of the flap, headlamp off, hair in a loose knot. "If it's a spider, don't tell me." "It's not a spider," I said. "Shapes, I don't know, like scratches, but deliberate." They came over reluctantly. Thin lines traced themselves across the dirt and gravel just beyond the guy lines. Curves intersected, looping back on themselves. They glowed, not enough to light the ground, but enough to be visible. Ethan frowned. "Glow paint. From who?" Mara said. "We arrived at sunset. Kids prank," I offered. "On gravel? In patterns like this?" Mara shook her head. We stood there, staring. The fire cracked. Sparks rose and faded. For a second, the light flattened the lines. Then the fire settled, and the glow returned. "Okay," Ethan said, straightening. "It's weird, but harmless. Art project, prank, something." "Kids don't do this," Mara muttered. "People do weird stuff in parks all the time," he said. Usually that convinced everyone. Not this time. We went back to the fire. Routine felt safer than staring. Still, the ring lingered at the edge of vision, patient. A breeze moved through the trees, whispering softly. Oddly, the sound thinned over our sight, then resumed beyond it. Mara noticed. "Do you hear that?" "Wind direction," Ethan said. She didn't argue, but kept glancing past the fire, at the tent. Eventually, Ethan grabbed a flashlight. "I'll check the perimeter." "I'll come," I said. Mara hesitated, then followed. Up close, the symbols looked less like scratches and more like pressed lines that didn't disturb the dirt. The gravel wasn't shifted, the soil untouched. They just existed. Ethan swung the flashlight. Trees, post at Site 18, a picnic table. No symbols beyond our sight. "See? Just here," he said. "Why?" Mara asked. No answer. The beam swung back, and the symbols shifted. Not the light, the lines themselves. They tightened, curves sharpening, glow brightening, almost legible. "Did you see that?" I said. "They didn't change," Ethan said. "They reacted," Mara whispered. He lowered the flashlight. The symbols dimmed, back to their earlier forms. Mara wrapped her arms. "I don't like this." "Then we sleep," Ethan said. "Morning we laugh." "Or leave," she said. "In the dark?" "For glow in the dark doodles." We fed the fire, sat closer. Glances at the tent were frequent. Each time, the glow seemed stronger. By the time we crawled inside, the symbols pressed against the tent, thin lines like veins under nylon. "Tell me if they come inside," Mara said. "They're not going inside," Ethan said. I lay between them. The wind had died. No branches, no insects. Silence pressed in. I turned on my phone, aiming the screen at the tent wall. The symbols reacted instantly. Lines nearest the light surged, stretching toward it. The pattern shifted, deliberate. "Mara," I whispered. "They're moving," she gasped. "They're not moving," Ethan said, distant. I angled the phone. The symbols on his side tightened, overlapping, forming a denser cluster, like a flattened face. Ethan froze. "Turn it off," he said. I did. Darkness returned. Glow dimmed, but not fully. Something else occurred. "They're closer," I said. "They're not," Mara whispered. "They are." I pressed my hand against the tent wall. The glow was inches away. My skin crawled. "They were farther out before," I insisted. Ethan unzipped the door slightly. The symbols had tightened, pressing almost against the tent. "Step over them," he said. "It's nothing." He swung his leg and met resistance. Invisible, immovable. Mara tried. Same result. The symbols pulsed brighter with each attempt. "They're trapping us," she whispered. "Stop," I said, lowering the flashlight. Glow steadied but didn't recede. From down the loop, a car door slammed. Headlights swept briefly across our sight. In that flash, the symbols exploded, revealing the full pattern. It wasn't random. Each line part of a larger design. The circle wasn't a boundary, it was a segment. When the beams passed, the glow dropped. Breaths came fast. "We need help," Mara said. Ethan shouted. Sound collapsed into silence. Same with Mara. Each attempt to be heard was absorbed. The circle pulsed with our failures. Branches shifted overhead. Soil moved beneath. "They don't want us heard," I said. "They're containing us," Mara whispered. The circle tightened. Tent fabric glowed, lines climbing. Then, slowly, the symbols began fading. Section by section. The pressure lifted. Ethan stepped over. Mara and I followed. Beyond the tent, dirt and gravel returned. No glow. Normal forest sounds. "See," Ethan said weakly. "It's over." Mara didn't respond, staring toward the road. A family pulled into Site 18. Car doors, laughter, casual voices. Normal. I followed her gaze. At their gravel pad, faint lines traced themselves into the dirt. A loose ring. Waiting.